Welcome back. That was a lovely book launch that we dived in and out of. And congratulations to all involved. So now we move on to 10.2, Cycleways, Walkways and Bridleways Advisory Group, revised terms of reference for 2022 to 2025. And I'll pass over to, am I passing over to Mike online?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks, Your Worship. Look, good morning, councillors. As you're aware, this CWB advisory group is one of our more effective groups. There are lots of different interests in that group, but under the leadership of Bruce Henderson, we focus on the commonalities rather than the differences, and the group does take its responsibilities really, really seriously. They put a lot of time and effort into reviewing these terms of reference, and I think any major changes would probably need to be referred back to them. But I think both the chair and officers are comfortable with the minor change that you mentioned earlier, Your Worship. This has been to the Climate and Environment Subcommittee. The subcommittee did request that Bruce give you a quick flavour of the work programme of the CWB Advisory Group this morning. So I'll hand over to Bruce, who hopefully is prepared to do just that.
Welcome, Bruce.
I'll go there. Okay. Yep. Okay. Well, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Mike, for your introduction. I'm assuming you're there behind the screen somewhere. Oh, yeah, there he is up in the corner. What we're going to show you today, here we go on our first slide, is a little bit of a summary of what was presented to the Climate and Environment Subcommittee, but we're also going to move on to a bit of a wider look at some of the work we're doing at the moment in terms of our network across the Rohe and where we're going in the future, because things are widening out a little bit. And just to look at who we are, one of the reasons why I'm taking it at this stage is that on quite a few occasions when we've talked about CWB, people have looked and said, "Who?" So it's almost as if we've flown a little bit under the radar at times. So I am running through a quick sort of a primer of exactly who we are. And so you'll see that we've got to represent quite a wide representation of different groups, and you'll take that it says walkers, joggers, hikers. Well, where it says joggers, you could equally put the word runners. So we actually do see that very much as part of our group, because the runners. I'm an ex-marathoner, mountain marathoner, orienteer, and we use the same terrain as other runners do, and as walkers do. It's not as if unless it's an athletic track, it's somewhere special, especially for runners. So recreational cyclists are quite diverse. You've got children through families, older age groups. There's quite a number of e-bike riding groups of older people on the coast, plus of course hundreds of individuals. Walkers and joggers, dog walkers, and there are organised events such as the Park Run, the Kapiti Half Marathon, the Benji Barsanti's Xterra run in Queen Elizabeth Park and Whareroa Farm and so on. But we also have to look at the disabilities. You have physical disabilities where the terrain is very important, and visual auditory where what people can see or what people can hear, for example at road crossings, are also very much a part of what we need to look at. And small wheels is a new category. Of course, there's a sort of an expansion in the number of e-scooters, ordinary scooters, skateboards, segways, omios, ogos, things like that. All these different things, other ways people are finding and moving around the district. So our diversity, we represent a very broad range, and providing trails and paths and trails is more than just building them. It's what do they look like for old people or people with limited mobility or vision, and also with that it's actually a commitment to maintaining them as well. The bigger the network, of course, the more it costs. But it can only be a positive experience when it's in good condition. If a trail is starting to deteriorate, then it actually is a less enjoyable experience for a lot of people, particularly those who have limited mobility or vision. And of course, if it's not a good experience, they're not going to recommend them to their friends and visitors and things like that. And so it actually starts to defeat it. These are some of our user groups. Different cultures and different centres also is another element to look at. If you were to compare, probably two good examples would be Wainuiwhenua, which is rapidly going ahead with large numbers of very large retirement villages, and therefore older people, and far more in the way of e-bikes. A number of people who, for instance, who no longer can drive for visual reasons or for whatever, health reasons, but can ride an e-bike. And so providing for them in communities like Wainuiwhenua is actually very, very important. And there are gaps in the Wainuiwhenua network that do need to be filled. So that's one of our focuses. If you were to compare that with Otaki, where you've got quite a different demographic and a lot of people for whom bikes are their only form of transport, the interesting thing is most people in Otaki don't wear helmets, which is it's just a different flavour and a different culture. But the result of the fact that there are so many and they don't wear helmets is that most Otaki drivers tend to be far more respectful around bikes than the more busy places like, say, Kapiti Road or Rimu Road or places like that. So it swings and roundabouts. And of course, numbers are growing steadily as everybody comes to work on to ride our network. I won't run through any great detail through this. These are our objectives. The important thing is that we're proactive, we advise and facilitate and make recommendations. We meet every couple of months right in this room, sharing what each group is doing, what the current needs of each group are. And also we get a really good rundown on what council staff are working on. I'd like to put in a special thank you there to the people that we've been working with, Mike Mendonca, and particularly I think our Energizer bunny, Janice Hill, who's currently somewhere in an aircraft between here and the Canadian Rockies. Lucky her. But also Mike Fraser Miller and Gareth Eloff, who's also working with us. You know, they really do make a very, very good team for us to work through. We've done quite a major review of our terms of reference this year, and I know that's coming up very shortly, which are being presented here for approval. These are our key documents. They've been set up as hyperlinks so that when this is up online afterwards, you can follow these links, particularly the ones in the NZTO Waka Kotahi space, because they actually provide a lot of the technical detail in terms of what we're looking at. But we do have to make one particular change with a lot of that stuff, and that is that we're quite unique in that we have a very strong equestrian sector in our area. And Waka Kotahi does not include that in their plans and constructions. So we actually have to look at how we can fit them and modify what we do, because we actually have a very strong horse trekking, equestrian, riding, and there's the gymnastics one down Waikanae River. That's very much part of our structure as well. On-road safety is a key issue, and Mr. Sleeth referred to that earlier. That's probably more of a focus for the Road Safety Advisory Group when and if it's reconstituted. We do some work in that, but it's not our prime focus. And also the child safe routes to schools is really, really important. You are aware of the proposed bike bus item that has come up through Raumati Community Board. That's one of the many things that are ways of actually looking at safer travel for children to and from school. Yeah, sorry, these are the ones we're working on at the moment. I won't spend time on that. Publicity, this is where our council staff have been so effective. And I am very, very pleased to announce that this morning I collected the very, very first copy of the Walks one from the printers. It was quite literally hot off the press. They tried to get some more copies, but they had a bit of a glitch, so they desperately sort of cut this one and stapled it and put it together. So this is the very first one off the press. And of course the other one, the Kapiti Coast Trails, these have been going out like hotcakes. People have been asking all over the place. They're in cafes, they're in all sorts of other places. Even, funnily enough, Otaki Vets had a whole pile on the counter. No surprise, because Councillor Kofod has a connection with that, as they explained to me, of course, when I was there. So we were very, very pleased. You might recognise the Wharamaku stream down on the bottom left there. Okay, this is also something that I think Mr. Sleep mentioned in passing. When CWB was formed under Stride and Ride, the focus was almost purely and simply on recreation. But things have changed quite a lot since then, and really now our focus has to be as much as anything on climate and environment and emissions control, and basically providing a safe transport option to get from anywhere to anywhere within the entire Kapiti region. And that is, again, for everybody of every age group and every ability. And so when that's in place, then we've actually got a really integrated network that everybody can use. And active travel, of course, is the phrase of the month. And we're all passionate advocates of that. Health and well-being. And this is an interesting one, an interesting concept that has become part of our work. And that is that we talk about destinations such as Ngā Manu or Māori land or the beach or the mountains. But in fact, very, very often, it's actually the trail itself and the path we use is the destination. We don't talk about, oh, I'm going to ride to Otaki. We talk about, oh, I'm going to go and ride the PP2O shared pathway. In other words, it's the pathway that matters. The destination and the coffee at the end is part of it, but it's the track that matters.
Change the...
Oh, I better change that, hadn't I? Run behind. Sorry, there it is. Forgot the button. Yes, and it's something that's easy to do. And so seeing the trail as a destination gives us another look at actually what we're developing and why. Thanks for that. And just being out there in the open, whether it's a path or a trail or a quiet back road, it's a source of well-being and recreation or recreation in the true sense of the word. So it's an important way of looking at how we develop and maintain our network. It's easy to forget sometimes just what a magical place we live in. The next few slides are a bit of a reminder of just where we live and why people want to come to visit and recreate and immerse themselves in our little slice of nature. Now, every one of these slides is within the Kapiti region. So I'm just going to run through them. I won't say much about them. I will say a little bit about the one on the left because it'll come up later in this discussion. That's one of the old benched forestry train tracks from up the back of Mangani Stream. You can see it's a flat path. It is absolutely solid because it actually used to have little trains running on it carrying logs. They're over 100 years old. They're still in perfect condition, and they're an absolutely magical place to walk. As you can see, it's walking through a glade. They're weatherproof. They're not erosion-proof. There's very little damage to them even after over a century. So they're a magical place to visit. Coastal bush and trails, that one on the left is actually, I think it's one just up behind Paikakariki. It comes off early on the escarpment walkway. And Waikanai River, from adventurous to contemplative. So again, it's trails and options for everybody. Right, from the Open Places strategy, I'm sure you've all of it studied it very well. There are 4 pages of maps like this. I chose this Waikanai pretty much at random. They as you see, from Paikakariki, Paraparamu, Waikanai, and the Otaki sectors. And each of them gives an outline of how there might be development, both not only down on the flat, but in the lower hills and in the upper hills and backcountry routes in behind it. So I'm going to hand over to my colleague here. Steve Lewis has been doing quite literally the groundwork up in the hills behind us, and he can tell you a lot more about the proposals that we're working on in the hills behind. Steve.
Thanks, Bruce. Yeah, thanks, Bruce. Morning, all. Yes, my name's Steve, and as you can see on the screen, we welcome you to the beautiful Cavity Coast. Now, I picked this particular way of looking at it because it's not often a way we look at the coast. Normally you're just looking at it from a map that's orientated north, and there's the Cavity Coast tucked on the side. So let's just focus on what we have. Obviously, is that the pointer? Oh, it is. Okay. Yep. Obviously, there's Paraparaumu, Kapiti Island, Paikok in the south, on the right, and Otaki on the left, and Akatara Forest in that area, with the Tararua Forest Park in the back. So following on from the basic ideas laid out in the open spaces strategy, we've worked up a proposal utilising the existing trail infrastructure on mostly public land to form an integrated trail network. The network has the potential to allow the Kapiti Coast to benefit from the growing and lucrative tourism market. And we find that the Kapiti Coast not only has a rich and varied Māori history, but also a long settler and development history. Much of the foothills and backcountry has been logged for native timbers and has left us with a legacy of forestry access trails and skidder networks. Although much of these are locked away in private ownership, there's enough on public land to form the basis of an integrated trail network. In the 30 years that I've been riding my mountain bike in and around the Kapiti Coast, I've never tired of the opportunities which this landscape has offered me. We've used this experience along with others to develop this plan. So we'll just start by adding in the coastal network, the one that we're probably most familiar with. And you can see there the main green line running through is the expressway trail, along through with the Queen Elizabeth Park through to Paikok, also up through Whareroa Farm. The blue line is the Kapiti Coastal Cycle Route. Okay, so we'll add on to that what I would call the foothills trails that are existing. So that's the Mangione walkway that we have running through to Rikiorangi, and then on to the Wainuiwhenua River. And then we're looking in this area here at the Mangatakotukutuku Road from in the hills, and then on to Campbell Mills Road in the south. So that's an existing trails that are already there. If we add in, and I hope you can see that properly, I could have done with a brighter colour maybe, but there is the purple lines north to south in this area behind, oops, sorry. Oh, no. What have I done? Let's go.
It's all right, they'll bring it up again.
They'll bring it up again.
Don't
Push
be
the wrong
ageist.
button.
Don't be ageist.
Keep going.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, thank you very much. So we're sitting there.
Really?
Very good. Press the right button. So in the north here, in behind Otaki, the Mount Thompson area and the Tangatamanga area access. Over here we've got Otaki Forks, and in this area here you can see that line coming up of farmland coming up to the Akatara saddle there. And then in the back here behind this is Akatara Forest, so the four-wheel drive roads that can take you all the way, connecting with Cambermill Road here through to Battle Hill on this end. Now if I add in there some roading network that we have, you'll see that these existing trails that we have are starting to be connected up. And so we're talking obviously main highways through the flats, but if we look at Otaki Forks Road, this is North Manukau here, and the road to the Tohu Valley up behind Otaki, and also through Wainuiwhenua River up through to the Akatara saddle here. So you can see that the thing's starting to get a little bit more connected. So we're not far away from what we might have to do to join everything together. And so connecting onto that, these orange lines are potentially what we might have to do to integrate that whole network into one large network. So we've got an area to the north here from the top of Tangatamanga through to Otaki Forks, from the Akatara saddle linking into the Akatara forest trails at Deadwood here, and another major one through here from the back of Rikiarangi through to the Waikanae River. And so what you'll see there now, just changing that up, is what we would regard as the full proposed Kapiti Trail network. As you can see there, just looking at that particular trail network, and I must just point out here that, of course, when I talk about these trails, that it's not exhaustive. This is just the ones that we feel that we can use and integrate into the system. Obviously, there's many more trails that we're not highlighting here, just for clarity's sake, that can be used. But if we look at that, we've got 217 kilometres of trail sitting here on the Kapiti Coast, just main trail, of which, if we were to do this, only 25 kilometres need to be built. So, as you can imagine, the cost benefit of that is great for the amount of effort we'd have to put in. If, for instance, if we look at the backcountry trail from North Manukau through to Battle Hill, that's 90 kilometres worth of trail. That could be regarded as a great ride or a walk, great walk. All of this we're looking at here, of course, is multi-use trails. We're not saying it's one thing or another. But the main thing, I think, if we were looking at this picture, is to look at the interconnectivity of it. Yes, we could look at, walking the whole 90 kilometres here, walking the 32 or 33 kilometres here, or the 35 kilometres here, but people don't quite use it that way. And as you can see, there's you could use maybe this loop or that loop, or a combination of the two. Or, I mean, if you looked at that map, you could find many ways of utilising that trail network, and that, I think, is the secret sauce for the amount of effort we have to put in to connect everything up. It can be used in multiple ways. If, for instance, if we were doing a wilderness walk and we had to build 90 kilometres worth of trail to get a trail, and then you'd only be able to use that trail in a single way from one end to the other, that's a different animal than what we're looking at here. We can use parts of the trail from wherever we like, and I think that's a great attraction. Not just for tourism, the benefit of the tourism, but potentially for the local use is huge. We've got an amazing amount of ability to use this trail network. If we go back into that mode, it's also expandable. So we can put, obviously, future connecting trails onto this network. and obviously whether something might be useful to the network or and a benefit to it, obviously gives whatever project you might be involved in a greater push, because it's got some things. Okay, I'll crash along. That's a shot of basically the larger area, and obviously we have our Kapiti Coast area, but it connects into the wider Wellington area, and we can't ignore that. Not with, oh, I've done it again, damn it. Here we go back. Yeah. Sorry. Kapiti Coast network within the Wellington region. I think the main thing is we're looking at what we have here on the Kapiti Coast, but also the idea that we're connected in through to Wellington on one end and through Levin to Palmerston North on the other. If we look quickly, I won't go into very much detail over what we have here, but obviously this is important. This is a multi-level experience that we've got here, and we have outstanding natural features. We're less than 1 hour from the international airport. It connects people with whenua and history through storytelling, multi-skill levels, and I think that's really, really important as well. Multi-skill levels, it means that we're not limiting ourselves to the people who can visit to utilise this network. We can have people riding on the flat who are not very experienced, all the way to those very experienced people or who could use the backcountry. All budget levels also catered for, so you've got a really wide ability to attract people here. The opportunities that we talk about here is that not only for locals using it, but obviously business and various other things can start hanging off this network, and people are coming to use it. We've got drop-off, pick-up, baggage transfers, guided tours, accommodation, food and beverage, bike hire, all that sort of stuff, multiple opportunities for regenerative tourism partnerships. And it also connects to other, other attractions, Kapiti Island, Ngā retail and other events. There's significant potential for events due to road connections, accommodation, not limited to on-trail. There's cross-country running, off-road marathons, all sorts of events that could be hung off this network. It connects to the Rumataka Trail network in the hut, and other thing that we haven't mentioned here is that also running right through the middle of that, this net they're proposing is Te Aotearoa Trail. So there's a whole nother option of for people to use what we're proposing. Obviously connects Tart Valley, Porirua through Battle Hill, and also there is work going on with Greater Wellington of other connections through that Akatara forest into Upper Hutt. It also will connect through to Levin via Otaki to North Levin, making the West Coast route effective and attractive. I think all this stuff is really important. It's a multi-level experience, and it's full of opportunities for tourism, but also for local coasters to utilise our landscape, to take those journeys, to enjoy that experience, and then to do it again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We had a really good Q&A on this during the subcommittee meeting. So, yeah,
sure.
Really fantastic stuff. Thanks for your presentations today. I'm going to now turn to the paper we have in front of us, which is the terms of reference. Do you have anything to add around the terms of reference, which is what we're considering today?
We're pretty happy with what they are. Everybody had the entire CWB group did have input as to what it was. We looked at things like the numbers of people on the committee. Because we're volunteers, we are in a position that we can't always have everybody present. They have other commitments and things like that. So it was a matter of juggling the numbers with trying to maximise representation. Trying to maximise representation right across the community. There are a few things we're still working on. We've not yet got the Small Wheels group actively on board, and also we're actually revising exactly how we interact with iwi representatives. They've in current form they haven't actually been attending the meetings, but we do know that our minutes and agenda are passed on. So I've been working with council staff on actually getting that clarified as to exactly how it will work. I think there's a new iwi liaison officer, and council staff have been working with them to develop how that might work. I think that pretty much covers it. As I said, we're focusing probably more and more on the environmental side of things and on also the commuting side of things. In other words, not just the recreational that we started on. I think that pretty much covers it.
Thank you very much, and thanks for all the work that's gone in. Mike, do you have anything to add before we move to questions?
No, Your Worship.
Okay, so we'll move to questions. Councillor Halliday.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And awesome presentation, guys. Absolutely fantastic. I've got a few things here, but underpinning everything is the fantastic work you guys are doing, and that's inspiring what we just saw there, so we're very much looking forward to that. Look, first question I have is in regards to the terms of reference. I didn't seem to see a process. If a new group's looking at coming on board or getting involved, sounds like there's one aspect of that where you go out and we'll find people, but another aspect of that is if people are interested in being representative, what's the process for that? Because I didn't really see a process in the terms of reference as such.
We don't have a formal process as such, but as an active group, and because we're all actively involved in the whole area, we're constantly seeing that there are new developments. I mean, the e-bike development over the last 4 or 5 years is one, and so ensuring that we've actually got an active view of how the e-bike evolvement fits into our network to make sure that they're properly catered for. I know one of the ones that's been discussed is the position of runners. As I said, I'm an ex until the legs got a bit past it. That making sure that that's properly covered. If there's a new group comes on, probably a good one that you saw in one of the pictures actually was the OMIO, the OGO. Gotcha. I'm not sure which is the correct name or whether it's both, which is basically a sit-down Segway, which was developed. It's actually an Otaki invention. Marcus Thompson is probably the most well-known user, and they've been exported internationally now. But they have peculiar needs because they can't fit through the squeeze gates that so many of our trails are on. So we're actually looking at how we can modify some of the trail entrances so that they can get in, but for instance, kids on trail bikes can't. So it's a matter of constantly looking at who uses the trails, are they properly being catered for, and if not, do we need to bring somebody else on board to deal with that particular issue.
Lovely, thank you. Look, it dovetails into my second question, which was around the running scenario. We've had an email from an ex-councillor really, and with regards to bringing running into the mix. But I'm under the impression you're open to having those conversations. I mean, I know we've looked at a motion around that, but I'm actually quite comfortable that that conversation can be potentially had and reported back on. But I'll take a lead from our mayor with regards to an approach to that as such. So that's great to hear. Thanks. There was a couple of comments made by Andre Baker that came through in an email that were broad comments. There's a couple I wanted to address here because one of them was incorrect and I wanted to make sure that it was corrected. Another one was just getting an understanding of something. The first one was around, and this might not be actually geared towards yourselves, but the second one will. The first one was just clarifying. He'd said that there was no option for Wainuiwhenua to be chair, but I actually saw in the terms of reference that there is. If that is voted on, because I think it was 3.2 and the people involved in 3.2, 3.3 are able to be voted on as chair.
Yes.
So that's correct, isn't it?
That's correct.
Lovely, thank you very much. The other one in relation to a comment by Andre was around quorum. Now, I'm going to make an assumption here, which I wouldn't mind some clarity from yourself, but am I picking that you consider a community representative to be people in 3.2 and 3.3? Which are 3.3 is the list of the as the list of the people in the groups.
Yes.
And 3 sorry, that's 3.2 and 3.3 is just our three EB representatives as that stuff as such. So, is there an assumption that that they would be included, if you like, as part of the 3 people that are in the requirement in the community representative space? That would sort of be picked up in that.
Can you, I don't know whether you've got it in front of you. Unfortunately, I haven't. I'm just trying to remember exactly what the wording is of that clause.
Yeah, look, it's not a biggie because I've got a little recommendation that we could slightly, if that was the intent, then I'll just had a sort of little modification that we could perhaps put in there just so that it clarifies that so that there's no ambiguity, if you like. If it's one thing, if it's the other, that's fine as such. But I would have thought that, or that's just my assumption, was that more than likely that you just included them as the community representative grouping. And
Yeah.
I was just going to suggest a little bit of wording that said that. And I've got a little bit here. It's because all it would be is modifying it to noting that the community representatives include members listed in 3.2 and 3.3, as you've done on some of the other things.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
I know I'm putting you on the spot, and you haven't got it necessarily in front of you there, but that's it's in relation to. I didn't write this one down. Sorry. Quorum. The quorum is comprised of 1 elected member plus 3 community representatives plus 1 council offer. Number 18 on page 33.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
Yeah, 1 elected member, which means one of our 2 councillors.
Oh yes, no, I hear
Yeah.
that. And I was just thinking for clarity, if we
3 community representatives. The community representatives in this case refer to the members of the different sectors,
so
and not specifically to the community boards.
no, we're talking about
No.
Wainuiwhenua representatives.
Oh.
Yeah, so
No, they would be included as part of that. Yes.
yeah, so I just thought it might be an idea to articulate that.
Yeah,
because I
it
thought that
hasn't
would be
come
the
up as a
case.
question because, as I said, that the iwi representatives haven't been active at the meetings.
I fully appreciate that. This is an email
I've got,
you
I've got a simple. So why don't we say plus 3 community or iwi representatives?
We could include that.
Yeah, that's what we need to do is
I'm
noting
just
the
trying to keep things very simple if we're going to make
yes.
any
I was
changes.
also just adding that the community representatives equal 3.2 and 3.3. That's
I'd be
included
quite
there.
happy with that.
Yep, it's only a minor one.
It's
but
a
just-
question
stops
that hasn't come up
ambiguity.
before, so it was why I was a little bit.
Yeah,
lost on
look,
it.
it's an unusual one. I freely admit that. I think
Yeah.
it was just an assumption made.
Yeah.
But he pointed it out, and it was just like, oh, okay, well, let's clarify that so that there's no ambiguity.
No, thank you. It was a question that's never arisen before.
Okay, well, yes. So that was cool. 1, 2, sorry, 3. Sorted that one. Actually, this is a message sent to council officers. Where do the minutes sit on our website in regards to this group? I really struggled to find them.
Mike?
To be honest, I'm not sure, Councillor, but I'll find out and come back to you ASAP.
Just as I guess that's that whole website upgrade scenario. Just having ensuring that all our community groups that it's actually relatively easy to access those
Yeah.
minutes.
Sure, I'll find out. Yep.
No, that
I can make a comment. This was discussed, I think, casually after the Climate and Environment Subcommittee meeting. We were talking about raising the presence of CWB on the council website. We don't have our own page or section on that, and I'm certainly very open to that. It's a little bit comes back to what I was talking about, flying under the radar.
Yes. No.
That a presence on the website, I think, is a very good idea, and that would be the natural place for minutes, agenda, and things to be posted, and also the documentation we work with, because there's quite a lot of that behind what we do.
Fully supportive of that. Hopefully, council officers could take note of that. Would be much appreciated. Number 5 for me. Look, we heard from Lynn around road safety. It seems like this group is morphing a bit into that space as well. Would you agree with that?
Road safety has always been an element of what we do, but it's never been our particular focus.
No, I appreciate that. But you're sort of expanding a little bit now.
Well, we have, but it's only really on a de facto basis.
Yep.
Because the number of council committees are under review, and the Road Safety Advisory Board is one of them. Mm-hmm. Now, normally they would have handled anything to do with road safety, but because they're currently in limbo, I suppose. I'm not sure what the correct word is. We've actually picked up on some of that stuff as a result of there not being any other group to do it.
Let's follow that up, Martin.
No
I think
troubles
that's
at all.
quite a big question, and I've already had communication via email from Councillor Warwick about that.
Fabulous.
So,
No, that's great.
so
Yep.
work in progress.
That plan you just showed us there, I think is absolutely fantastic. I guess my question is, as part of that coming to the long-term plan and other things, who's championing this into the council table? I'm going to make an assumption, Shelley, it's more than likely you and Rob, because of your involvement with this group.
Yeah, we allocated them.
Lovely, thank you very much. And I have one more. When you've got the trails as you showed them around there, are they combination trails? I just didn't quite get that. Walking, running, and biking. You know, that's the general co-papa there. Is it's mixed purpose, is it?
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Yes. Equestrian. Sorry, you're not. Yes.
You're not here, say that.
Yeah.
That's something.
No, our whole point is that these trails are for everybody.
Yeah, fantastic.
So,
Okay,
I mean, obviously, some of them wouldn't be suitable
I
for
appreciate that.
certain groups.
But
But in
show
terms
on
of the intent of it, it is open to everybody.
Oh, fantastic. I'll leave the rest of my comments to debate. But thank you very much.
Thanks, Martin. That was a great set of questions. Cam?
Just a real quick note. If we have been asked to discuss changes to terms of reference, can it be in the agenda to actually have like a marked up version so we can actually see the changes? I know it was talked about in the recommendations about the general changes. But
Do you mean from the old version to the new version?
so we can actually see what the wording changes are. I assume that wouldn't be too difficult. But then we can actually see.
We'll take that suggestion back. Thank you.
That was all.
Councillor Cooper.
Yeah, just quickly a couple of questions in relation to the off-track cycleways, tracks. I think we've seen across New Zealand what the economic benefit of those tracks can be. Timberlands, rail trail, the old Gold Coast Road, Wairia, right across the country. So I would support anything we do in that space. I think could be amazing. But my question is, what do you need what would you like from the council? What do you need from us to really progress this and push it forward? So what do you need in the immediate? What would you like in the intermediate? And what do you want long term from us as a council?
I think the main thing is that we're not necessarily, I mean, obviously the council would be heavily involved in the project, but I think as far as money's concerned, we've looked at how other areas do it, and we're thinking, Queenstown District Council and various other places, how do they...
Sorry, is this to do with the terms of reference?
No.
So I'm taking questions on the terms of reference because that's a bigger conversation. It's a big project, and we're trying to stay focused on the council papers today. Though we did really appreciate the update and the presentation.
Or maybe they come back at another time.
I just think if we start to do a Q&A on the presentations as well as the terms of reference, we're going to be here until.
Okay, my only
7
question
o'clock
then
tonight.
for the terms of reference is there is I think there might be a motion, but there's certainly some talk around including the running fraternity in the group formally.
Yep.
What would be your, because you know the group, it's your gig, what do you think to help me make a decision?
I would be very, very happy. We included running really under walking, and would be very happy to call it walking and running, which I think would probably cover that.
Awesome.
It actually covers wider groups like dog walkers and all sorts of people like that as well. But walking and running would cover it completely.
Yeah, so
Magic.
we're proposing
Thank you.
a minor change to include that.
Awesome. Good
But
job.
it's only the start of that conversation. There could be more.
Thanks.
Councillor Coe.
Yeah, just picking up on our public speaker earlier this morning in relation to advocacy and connection with other groups. I'm not sure whether this requires a change in terms of reference. I think the issue, it seems to me, that they had was they weren't aware necessarily of when the meetings were being held or what was being discussed. So whether that would be solved simply by upping the presence on the website, or whether you've got whether there's some other mechanism for communication out to wider groups rather than just the members of the advisory group.
Yeah.
Is there is there need for some mechanism for communicating out more widely? So, as I say, may not need a change in the terms of reference, but it seems to me to be quite important to increase that level of communication.
Well, certainly, I mean, our representatives of the different sectors are all themselves involved in those wider groups. I mean, our equestrian advocates, as Councillor Warwick knows very well, because she was one of them, they are very, very strong advocates on the group, and they bring their work, and their work goes back to the equestrian community. We do have cycling representatives. One of the current cycling representatives is actually a member of KCA.
Right.
So there is a communication channel there available, but I do think that raising the profile on the website would be a very good way of raising the publicity. And it must be said, of course, that I mean our meetings are public, and so if anybody has a particular interest in that and wants to advocate for one of those groups, they'd be very, very welcome. And I've certainly discussed it on more than one occasion, and invited people to come along and talk to CWB about their particular interest.
Just they don't seem to know when the meetings are on.
No, it's quite low profile, and again, it's not on the council meetings website.
Yes. Okay, maybe that needs to be addressed rather than changing the terms of reference.
Mike, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think that's good guidance, and I think the website's the way to go with respect to raising their profile. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Councillor Warwick.
Oh, mine's just about the couple of points of clarification I sent through yesterday or the day before. About elected members, just the wording cannot be representative of the listed interest groups, and will that wording be changed, because we actually represent we're representative of groups, but within that committee that we elected members cannot be the community representative, because we're still actually all, I mean, me and Rob's a cyclist and a walker, I'm a horse rider.
Yeah.
So it's just a point of clarity around the wording, and will that be changed?
I
No?
don't think we need to change the wording. I think that's well understood, as long as we understand it.
If I
But
can
I'll take
clarify,
advice.
from my point of view, looking at that, I think the important thing is, and I'll actually commend Councillor Warwick on this, because she's been one of the active community equestrian community people on the CWB for some time. That when she pivoted to when she became a full councillor, she was no longer in a position on that basis of being able to be an official equestrian representative. And I want to commend her on how she has actually pivoted her role from being specifically equestrian to actually advocating for the entire CWB network and community in terms of promoting our work. But that is an important distinction, I think. I mean, if you took out everybody on CWB who was not a walker, a rider, or an equestrian, there wouldn't be anybody in the room.
Thanks, Bruce.
Do I have anybody else? Mike, do you have any further responses before we... Just checking because you're online.
No, I'm fine. Thanks very much, Your Worship.
Great. So we're now ready to move to the recommendations. I'm just wondering how we deal with this. I'm just going to take some advice. We've got two changes that we'd like to make to the recommendations. 3.2.1 should read walking and running. Can we note the changes that were suggested in the meeting, or do we need to itemise them in the recommendations?
You could put a bit in there that instructs me to make grammatical changes.
No. It probably depends on how much you trust their implemented changes. But you could quickly, with those amendments, that would probably be the cleanest.
So,
That would be
with...
You tie them together actually with a running representative.
Okay, so we're going to
The regulation.
specify the amendments. That the council approves the revised terms of reference for the cycleways, walkways and bridleways advisory group. Have we got that recommendation up on the screen so that we can just add a bit to it?
With the following amendments, and then you're moving that recommendation instead.
Yeah.
I think that's clean.
Yep.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
might it be appropriate for us to note the changes that we are recommending and then for the advisory group to ratify those?
Yeah, I'm just going to pop them up there just so we know what we're talking about, rather than trying to find a mover and a seconder and then do an amendment and things. We'll do the new amendments and then see if we've got a mover and seconder for them. Just think it's easier today. So that A now reads with the following amendments at the end of that sentence after group. Colon. And then a new line. 3.2.1 to read. And maybe in inverted commas, walking and running. And then the next one, 18 to read. The quorum is comprised of colon, one elected member. It doesn't need to be a separate line, just two spaces after the colon. That's the same as the terms of reference. One elected member, comma, plus 3 community or iwi representatives, comma, plus 1 council officer, full stop.
So you're moving this recommendation instead.
So, I don't know about. So basically, I'll try and preempt any questions by saying that these are the and running has been added to 3.2.1. So the members represent walking and running, and that's a member or an alternate. So you could have an alternate who was a running specialist, for instance, and it also recognises running explicitly in the thing. So 18, it's just we added the words or iwi. That's all we did. Now, are we going to go around the table and all ask questions about that?
7, it refers to the representative group, new representatives approved by members listed in 3.1 and 3.2. In paragraphs, number 6 talks to groups in 3.2 and 3.3. All I was suggesting is that all you really needed to put on the end of that was the representative groups. The quorum is comprised of 1 elected member plus 3 community representatives represented by 3.1 and 3.2 plus the 1 council officer. 3.2, 3.3.
I don't think that's it's materially different to what's suggested up there,
I'm
Councillor Halliday.
just looking for consistency, that was all.
Sorry. So we've now I'm just feeling a little bit weird that we're having a discussion now without this motion having been moved and seconded. So I'm going to move those, and I'll call for a seconder, Councillor Warwick, and we'll have now some debate. So we'll start with Councillor Coe.
I just have a point of clarification. Are we dictating these changes to the advisory group, or are we suggesting that they consider changing their terms of reference accordingly?
Well, What, so they seem happy, the representatives seem happy today. Do you think that's going to be an issue?
I'm reasonably comfortable with that, yeah. I
Yeah.
don't know whether there's a legal.
I think we are
situation
now,
there.
we are now approving these terms of reference, which is our
Right.
mandate. So these are now the terms of reference. We're not sending them back to them for
Okay.
ratification.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Just wanted
Given
to
that we're
clarify that.
given that we're a mandated council body, I do think that probably you do have that legal right.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So no, we're approving these terms of reference today with these changes. They're not major, I don't think. Councillor Warwick?
My question around that is one elected member, which if it's broad, any elected member is actually quite good, because if me and Rob were not available, if both of us are unavailable on a meeting night for whatever reason, can we call in another councillor, which would, that wording would support, to be the representative, or are we just the ones that are representative? That's my only point of clarification. Are we allowed to,
We'll find some clarity on that. That's not something we can solve today, so
no.
we'll just find out that.
I think it
'cause
would be
we're not-
good though, because
Yeah.
if we can call in another person, if we were unable to be there.
I think it would probably be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we
Absolutely.
commenting now or not?
And also the mayor or deputy mayor can also. So we're in debate, yes?
So, having been on the committee for 7 years, I just would like to reiterate that this is an amazing group of people, and Bruce has been amazing chair, and a lot of work goes in, and yes, we do fly under the radar, and if we can lift that, the profile of the group and the work that it does, it would be amazing. I did actually nominate the group for a Wellington Community Board, but because they're so closely tied to council, they couldn't do that. But it is an amazing group. And thank you guys for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Spires.
Thank you. Just under B, it's got +3 community or iwi representatives. Is that the intent, to have one or the other? Or
It
should
means they can be from
including
either
the
group.
Oh.
It's either or. I think it's fine.
It's fine,
Yeah.
fine, okay.
Lawrence.
It's just a small thing, but maybe we need to put quotes around B18
yes.
to read, and then the quotation marks
Yep.
again, like we have in
point.
the one above it.
So quotation mark starting with the.
It's just a small correction. Otherwise, I think it's exciting to see the brochures coming out that publicise our trails. I think it's one of the things that has potentially been a hidden secret of the Kapiti Coast, the number of trails that we have, particularly up and behind us, and to actually see that coming out as publicised and advocated for is a fantastic thing for our community. So thank you. Please pass on our thanks to the whole advisory group for the work that they've done, and with council staff in this space.
Thank you.
I think it's exciting for the future of the coast to be advocating these active modes of transport and using our beautiful coast and enjoying it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Lawrence.
And yes, we definitely pass that on.
Can I just add one thing to that? Yes, there are printed maps coming out, but also there is on the GIS site, council GIS site now, a riding map overlay that's available on there. So that's another extension of the field of how we're advertising, or how we're getting the message out. That's starting up, and it's really good. Thank you.
They're also on Greater Wellington Find Your Wild, and they're on, these maps are all, and brochures are also on the council website already.
Thank you. Councillor Hanford.
Yeah, kia ora, Bruce, kia ora. I just wanted to really say a massive thank you to both of you, and also to the wider team, and also the elected members who sit on the CWB. And as Councillor Halliday addressed, it would be awesome through the long-term plan process to hear that coming through, and as acknowledged by Bruce, the fact that the CWB is getting more involved in the commuter linkages, I think, is really crucial, considering that 56% of our emissions are transport related. And so if we think about our wider kind of climate picture, those connections are really, really vital. Another conversation that I look forward to hearing the CWB's views on in the future is the potential for an e-scooter trial in the district. I know that some of our council staff have had conversations with Porirua City Council in terms of learnings that we can take directly from the trial of 200 e-scooters that they've just begun rolling out. So how all of those different modes can coexist safely and in a way that is enabled is really exciting. So I look forward to hearing directly from the users and the people who are represented on the group. The other thing, just to come back to the point around runners being included, I think where we've landed today is a really good starting point, as the Mayor acknowledged, but I look forward to seeing what comes from further conversations with specifically Gwyn and others who may consider themselves to be part of the running community and might want to continue feeding in. And that point around comms and lifting the profile of the group, I think, is really important. Adding on to that, it might be even useful for a Facebook presence to be considered, and maybe that's something that Sam, who I believe is still the youth representative on CWB, might be keen to kind of do a bit of work on. So just throwing that idea into the midst. Kia ora, thanks.
I think
for all
talking
your
with
work.
the council comms team on that one could be worthwhile. You may be aware that Waka Kotahi is in the process of looking at renewing their declaration on the status of scooters, e-scooters in the whole transport scene, because the current declaration expires in September, I think, and if it's not renewed, then the e-scooters will automatically become motor vehicles and will require registration and user licensing. So that's an issue that we actually have to sort out with some urgency.
Thank you. Great points. Cam?
Some of the comments around the table have been fantastic, and so I fully concur with all the fantastic work that the CWB has been doing. Just a question regarding the amendment, and this might be a Steffi question. If the council officers are not voting, surely then they're not required as part of the quorum. Because a quorum is the people that are able to vote, and therefore the votes are carried. So
I think it's acknowledging that a council officer needs to be present at the meeting for it to be a useful meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's correct.
It's not just about voting.
And by far the majority of our decisions are made by consensus, and then are communicated with and to, and both two ways, with council officers.
It is unusual for a council officer to be counted towards a quorum, but I think it's just a practical thing to make sure that a council officer is present.
Yeah, I was just wondering whether that should be worded slightly differently to say the quorum is this, plus we require a council officer to be present.
Yeah, I don't think it would make a material difference. I think it's fine as it is.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Councillor Wilson?
Yeah, just quickly, I note that, walking and running have now become synonymous, but I just wonder if the running community is a real community. It's a separate thing, so that there is somebody who is a representative specifically from the running community. I mean, I'm following up from Gwyn Compton's request about that. There are really significant and quite large running groups in Kapiti, and they would probably have a specific viewpoint that they would like represented in here. So there was a proposed amendment to that. I would support that. I think it's a good idea, because it is a significant group.
Yeah, so we're in debate now, actually, so the responses shouldn't have been coming from the group. So I'll respond to that in my right of reply, which is coming up.
Yeah.
I think.
So are we going to actually put that up as a?
So I'm about to have my right of reply on this, and we'll see if this passes, and then this will be the terms of reference. So you vote as you see fit. So so I'd like to acknowledge the email that's come through to. Oh, suddenly a light's come on. Oh. Sorry, Councillor Cooper.
Yes, sorry, because it was just to follow up from a moot point that Nigel makes. So I'm assuming, and I may be wrong because we know what happens when people assume. I'm not going to say it. Yeah. So at the meeting, the walkers can turn up, and the runners can turn up. Is that correct? So we've got walkers and runners, or are we interpreting that to be alternates? So the walkers can turn up but not the runners, or the runners will turn up and not the walkers? Or both.
It's not question time. Sorry, just say
Oh, yeah,
what you've got
I'm
to
just-
say. Yeah.
Point of
It's a
clarity, I guess. Around the
rhetorical question.
Point of clarity.
It's a rhetorical question then.
Well, I
Okay.
don't know the answer, so it's not rhetorical.
Well, it's not
Sorry,
question
it's-
time. It needed to be asked during
Okay.
kind of question time.
Well, I only asked because it was
I
raised.
guess I'll respond to that in my right of reply, if that's okay. Yeah. Councillor Halliday.
Just checking, we're doing I just want a point of clarity here. We're just doing an amendment to the recommendation, then we go back to the recommendation, or are we doing the full thing now?
I've moved an amended recommendation. So we are considering this and we're debating this and then we're going to vote on it.
I'm just curious.
I have moved this what's on the screen has been moved and seconded and we're debating it.
Yep,
That's quite
I
clear.
appreciate that. Councillor Wilson was talking about doing an amendment to the amendment. Wouldn't that be the process rather than?
Well, he
finishing this
hasn't
one?
moved an amendment. So
Well, he was
are
told
you
he
going to
couldn't.
contribute to the debate? Because I won't take any other questions around
Okay.
process.
I was just looking for some clarity. That
Thank
was
you.
all.
I just want this meeting to stay tidy. Thank you. So what's on the screen has been moved and seconded, and hopefully my right of reply will give people some comfort in what we've come up with today. So I acknowledge the email that came through last minute yesterday asking us to change the makeup of a group, which has been considered by the group and come to the council today. And the members of that group who are present here today have offered to make some alterations which open the door to a conversation around having a running representative on this group. What we've also heard today is that there's going to be, we're going to encourage the group to follow on from Lynn's suggestion, which is looking at this engagement with advocacy groups, which would include the running community. And that would go some way to providing that voice for the running community on the group. And we've offered to have council staff help also with wider communication so that we can continue to expand the work of the group, which is already quite significant. I mean, I know I went to the mobility scooter lunch and they have some particular needs around the community as well. So there's lots of different modes of transport that need to be represented. So this is a way to bring running into the conversation, bring running into the group. We've heard that one of the members is an ex-ultra marathon runner, so that voice is there, in fact the chair. So I feel quite comfortable that running is represented at present on the membership of the group. So with that, I will put these recommendations. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? That's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for all the work that you're doing for your presentation today. Much appreciated. Thank you. So I'll move swiftly on to the next item on the agenda because Mr. Mendonça has to leave fairly shortly, I understand, which is the Asset Management Plan, Halls and Community Centres. Mike, would you like to... Sorry, we're having to continue on as you leave, but we're under time pressure. Thank you so much. Mike, would you like to... Oh, we've got some people coming to the table. Kelvin?
Excuse me, Madam Chair, just a point of clarity.
Yeah.
The question I asked was around the...
So we're not going back to the previous paper. We are now on item 10.3, Asset Management Plans, Halls and Community Centres.
I was
Thank
just under the
you.
impression that we hadn't finished that process off correctly.
We have. We moved and seconded some motions. They were carried. That's it.
I thought we moved and seconded the amendment, not the motion.
No, we moved the amended motions.
Well, that's why I asked for clarity on, otherwise I would have spoken in debate.
So we put up some motions which were moved and seconded, and they were clearly on the screen. Welcome to the table. We're looking forward to this discussion.
Thanks, Madam Chair. So you're joined by Kelvin and Claire, who have done most of the work here. Look, councillors, we're not asking you to make any decisions today. We have briefed the Social Sustainability Subcommittee on this draft, on this asset management plan. It is a snapshot of this current state of the asset. It's not perfect, but we think it's an adequate snapshot to inform your thinking and planning and the advice we're going to give you around the long-term plan. You heard from Glenn and John earlier about the beach hall, the Wainuiwhenua beach hall. Yes, it is a problem. Actually, our current priority is Tēnei Whanga Community Centre in Paraparaumu, which I can assure you is a subject of intense officer attention and debate at the moment. And of course, we've got Ōtaki, which also requires some fairly urgent attention. Just a couple of points. In terms of the usage of these facilities, we're just a little bit cautious about using some of the statistics in the report. The truth is that we don't actually know with great clarity because there have been keys in the community that we haven't had control of. So some of the usage has not been recorded. Now, as most of you are aware, we have changed from a key system to a swipe card system. So I've timed that right up, and that's flushed out a whole bunch of stuff, including usage and some practices that we previously didn't know. So just a little bit of caution around those statistics. The direction of travel is around multifunctional use of these facilities. As Richard Mansell pointed out earlier, there is a great opportunity for us to partner with other owners of facilities. We don't necessarily have to own all these facilities to get the outcomes that we're after. There is a temptation for us to build new assets, but actually we think that partnering and looking after our existing assets needs to be the things we look at first before we rush off to design and build new assets. I would thank the Deputy Mayor. There is a slight mistake on page 46. The deal we have with Paraparaumu College around the sports hall there doesn't end in 2025. It ends in 2029. Thank you, Lawrence, for pointing that out. My apologies. So that's all I really wanted to say, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to take any questions, but I'll just reiterate, we're not making any decisions today. We're just asking for you to bless this so that we can use this as the backing for advice around the long-term plan. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike. We'll kick off with Councillor Wilson.
Sorry, I was just thinking about the blessing.
He's having an internal joke.
Mike's just looking for a blessing here. I just wondered, Mike's talking about the emphasis on the current as opposed to the new, but I just wonder, Mike, and I'm not trying to throw you under any kind of bus here, but take the Wainuiwhenua Beach Hall, for instance. So we're talking about a new hall, but it's actually a replacement. So so I just want to know that there's a clear delineation between something that's new and something that's a replacement for something that's currently there. So say, for instance, the Wainuiwhenua Beach Hall, you could get the hammer and nails out and fix it up, or you could get a bulldozer and put something there, but it's not, strictly speaking, a new hall. It's a replacement for something that's there.
So important distinction to make is the difference between a new asset, an upgrade of an asset, and the renewal of an asset. And the reason that's really important is with an upgrade that is related to growth, we can use developer contributions or reserve contributions to help to fund that. So we like to think of it as either new, an upgrade, or a renewal. The truth is, though, Councillor, with most of our existing assets, a straight renewal won't cut the mustard, because since we built these things, the level of service that's expected from them is now resulting in an upgrade. So with respect to the Wainuiwhenua Hall, I guess we're somewhere between a new and an upgrade. It's kind of an interesting one because it doesn't neatly fit into one of those three categories. Yeah. But in terms of budgeting and the long-term plan, we'll need to figure out exactly where it fits.
Yeah, cool. No, that was my point, is that it doesn't get put over here somewhere if it belongs somewhere else. So no, it's cool.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Coe.
Thank you. I'm speaking from a little bit of experience in managing halls. I've had about 10 years on the committee for Ocean Road Community Centre. I was on the Paraparaumu Community Centre committee for 2 or 3 years, and I'm currently in charge of renting out the key to rooms down at the airport. So, so I have a few comments to make in that context. And the first one is that, as you rightly say, there's a number of facilities in the area that are not council owned. However, they do have requirements for ongoing maintenance and upgrade, which tends to be beyond their internal capabilities. And for example, down at Ocean Road, we have a massive project that's been underway for 2 or 3 years now to upgrade that facility, and we have struggled there to get the funding. So I think in terms of feeding into the long-term plan, some consideration should be made of how we can support those non-council owned facilities, because they're not self-contained in terms of their financing capabilities, and a lot of them, you know, may well require council assistance to remain viable, and they are an important part of our network. The second point I would make is that, having been in charge of, you know, looking at rental inquiries for these various places, it seems to me, in terms of improving utilisation, there is a massive need for a central point that people can go to, whether we call it kapiti venues or something, some website or something, where if someone wants to hire a room, they can go there, and there is all the information. There's a picture of the venue, there's details of what's available in the venue, how much the hourly rate is, and it covers not only council-owned facilities but non-council facilities as a central point, because, you know, I can't count how many times I've had inquiries from people to say, we don't know where to go, you know, that if my room's not available, where else can we go to get a room? There is no, I think we could significantly improve the usage if there was, you know, some sort of thing with reasonably high profile. If you're looking for space, here's where you go, here's what's there, here's how much it costs, and here's how you go about hiring it. So I'd like to see worked into this process, not just building up the assets themselves, but some investment in things that are going to improve the utilisation as well.
Thanks, Liz. Do you need a response, or was that early contribution to debate?
Well, I'm just wondering how we can...
Do you want a response?
Yeah, I would like to find out, you know, whether this is something that could be considered.
Thanks.
I guess, yeah.
Cool.
So, thanks, Councillor. So I take your point on the first one around supporting facilities that aren't council assets. We have the same issue at Te Horo at the moment, and no doubt others that we don't know about. We will bring advice to you around that, and I guess you'll have a decision to make as to what our priorities are with respect to our investment profile, given that we've got our own assets as well. In terms of your second point, yeah, fair call. We've got, actually, our website's not too bad when it comes to council-owned assets. And we've just changed to a new booking system with which we are having some teething problems, but hopefully we'll flush those out in time. But what we haven't done, it's a good point, is we don't have non-council assets on our website. Perhaps that is something that we could have a think about and a look at, is to have some kind of portal where we have all of the available assets in the district rather than just the council ones. But we can take that and have a look at that, Councillor. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manson.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike. We've talked extensively at Wainuiwhenua about the Wainuiwhenua halls, and it's apparent to me that having two failing halls sitting right next to each other just seems like a massive waste of money. So my question is, have you done any work, or should you be doing any work, on how to dispose of halls that are probably sitting on reserves? And should that be something that council officers should be looking at as part of the process of looking about upgrading?
So at a high level, yes, we have looked at the process for disposing of halls on reserved land. Complex, and there are a couple of fish hooks in there around the Wainuiwhenua Beach Hall, for example. What happens to that property if it's disposed, and who it gets offered to? So it's not simple. We haven't done that in anger. We've only done that at a high level, I guess, in principle way. But I can tell you, it's not easy to dispose of a public asset, either legally nor from a community perspective. Reducing a level of service or an asset base is very difficult.
Thank you. Glenn Olsen.
Yeah, thanks. Just a quick one. I noticed that for the Mazingard Sports Hall, there are OPEX and CAPEX numbers in the report, but there's no usage. I'd be really interested to know, how well is that hall being used? If we're spending money on it. So, 100%. Yeah.
Claire, are you able to respond to that question, please?
So the property team only just started collecting the data for the Mason Garb Sports Hall. What am I saying? Mason Garb Sports Hall, sorry. And so we've just added into our new booking system, so we'll start having that data. I might have mentioned that in the report at some point, but we didn't have good data for the usage rates, but we will from now on with our new booking system that's in place. So yeah.
It was part of the parks portfolio. It was part. Okay. Do we have just a feeling of how well it's used? Just to
I think it is fairly well used, Kelvin.
Yeah, it is very well used. Yeah, I thought it was.
Percentage, I couldn't give you a percentage.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn. I'm not seeing any more lights on. So I'll move to the recommendations. Which are on page 36, A, B and C. Do I have a mover for those? Councillor Wilson, seconder. Councillor Hanford. Right of introduction.
Just very quickly say that there's Mike and his team seem to be really across this stuff, and we're already seeing quite significant progress. So just looking forward to seeing that keep going.
Yep. Lawrence.
Yeah, just wanted to, it's really great to see these asset management plans coming across our table with our resources and the things that we own for our community, and seeing plans around that. I'm looking forward to some of the further conversations around how we balance what we own and how we support what is going on within our community around other facilities in the future. I think that's an important part, as Councillor Coe has already mentioned, of our conversation and what we need to be doing as council. But again, thank you to the staff for the work they've done in getting this part of our asset management plan after our public toilets. Now the next one, and I await the next one that will come shortly as well. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Councillor Warwick.
On page 56 talks about Otaki Memorial Hall upgrade, and there's a beautiful picture. I'm wondering if that's what you're planning for us.
I think that's a rhetorical question because we're in debate. We all know what the answer is, Shirley. Mr. Mansell.
I just want to go back to my previous point that specifically in Wainuiwhenua there are some very hard decisions that need to be made, and hopefully the councillors will be able to make them with some good quality information. I can see that there's a lot of information that we will need to get if we're going to get rid of some of the surplus halls that I believe we have. I'm looking forward to the next stage of the reports.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any more lights, so I'll chip in just a little bit. So thank you so much for this report. It's excellent work. I feel like we're really getting on top of, as the Chief Executive said earlier, how to stretch the elastic so that we can look after the many different communities we have. I thought it was an interesting point that we have a lot of halls per population, and that's because probably we have so many small communities. And I'd like to acknowledge that Wainuiwhenua Beach is one of those, and that we had two public speakers coming today giving a very in-depth presentation on the need for a community space there, which I endorse. I'm not sure that that's reflected in this asset management plan, but I'm also aware that this plan is a starting point. So that's one area where I'd signal that I think there would be a number around the council table want to have further conversations. And there will be other ones as well. So a great starting point and a great place to come to as we approach the long-term plan. And I'll pass to Councillor Wilson for a right of reply.
Yeah, just to reiterate a couple of the points that were made, that Liz made about coordinating the broader concept of halls. So we've got, I just quickly noted, say, Te Rakura, Southwards, Ocean Road, the Hockey Turf Trust Impact Hub.
St. Peter's Hall, Paikakariki.
St. Peter's Hall and Paikakariki. So there's lots of examples of halls that aren't ours, but we as a community would be fundamentally worse off if we didn't have them. And so, how do we support those, or how do we work with those? Because it's really easy for us to focus on our own assets, but these are community assets, but not in the sense of the council owns them, but what is our obligation to support them? So I'm sure that will be part of the bigger picture that Mike and his team are looking at. But 3 cheers, good stuff.
Thank you very much. So I'll put those to the vote. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? That's carried. Thank you very much. Thanks, team. Really brilliant. Hope we haven't made you late, Mike. And we'll now break for lunch until 1:45. Thank you.